Sophia knew two truths. Her sister was in love with their stepfather, and by sunrise their mother would be dead. What she didn't know, that she'd be the one to dig the grave. In the quiet, tree-lined streets of Millfield, the Carter family was the envy of the neighborhood. Linda Carter, a hard-working nurse with a warm smile, had rebuilt her life after the sudden death of her first husband. Her two daughters, Emily 17 and Sophia 15, were bright, popular girls who excelled in school and sports. When Linda married Richard Hartman, a charismatic real estate agent with a knack for winning people over, the family seemed complete. Richard was the doting stepfather, coaching the girls' soccer team, helping with homework, and even turning the basement into a cozy movie room for family nights. From the outside, they were the perfect modern blended family. But cracks in the picture-perfect facade began to show in small, unsettling ways. Linda, once the heart of the home, started pulling extra shifts at the hospital, leaving Richard alone with the girls for days at a time. Neighbors noticed Emily, once outgoing and confident, becoming withdrawn. She started dressing in tighter clothes, wearing more makeup, and laughing a little too loudly at Richard's jokes. Sophia, on the other hand, grew quiet and jumpy, flinching when Richard raised his voice. Friends at school whispered that Emily had changed. She no longer hung out with them, instead rushing home right after class. When asked about it, she would just smile and say, "Family comes first." Richard's behavior raised eyebrows too. He was overly affectionate with the girls, hugging Emily a little too long, brushing Sophia's hair behind her ear in a way that felt too intimate. When Linda was around, he was the perfect husband, attentive, loving, always holding her hand. But when she wasn't, his demeanor shifted. He became possessive, texting the girls constantly, demanding to know where they were and who they were with. He even showed up unannounced at Sophia's school play rehearsal, insisting on driving her home despite her protests. Then, the rumors started. A classmate claimed she saw Emily and Richard holding hands in a parked car outside the diner. Another swore she heard Richard call Emily baby in the grocery store. When confronted, Emily laughed it off, calling it ridiculous. Linda, exhausted from work and trusting of her husband, dismissed the gossip as small-town drama. But then, one evening in late October, Linda didn't come home. Richard told the girls she had gone to visit a sick friend out of town, but she hadn't packed a bag or left a note. Her phone went straight to voicemail. When Linda's sister called the hospital, they said she hadn't shown up for her shift. The next morning, her car was found near Willow Creek Trail, driver's door slightly ajar, keys still in the ignition. There was no sign of Linda, just a single muddy footprint on the floor mat that didn't match her shoes. As police began asking questions, Richard's calm demeanor started to unravel. He gave conflicting accounts of Linda's whereabouts, first saying she had left for a friend's house, then claiming she had mentioned needing space. Emily, usually so poised, became defensive when detectives asked about her relationship with Richard. Sophia, pale and trembling, could barely speak. Something was very wrong in the Carter household, and soon the truth would come out in the most horrifying way possible. The discovery of Linda Carter's abandoned car sent shockwaves through Millfield. Police treated the scene with growing suspicion. The vehicle was parked haphazardly, as if someone had left in a hurry, yet nothing appeared stolen. Linda's purse sat undisturbed on the passenger seat, her credit cards and cash still inside. The most puzzling detail was the faint metallic smell lingering in the air, barely noticeable beneath the scent of pine from the surrounding woods. Detectives immediately questioned Richard Hartman. He maintained his story about Linda visiting a friend but couldn't provide a name when pressed. His alibi for the night of her disappearance was shaky. He claimed to be watching a movie alone at home while the girls studied upstairs. Neighbors, however, reported hearing raised voices from the Carter house around 9 p.m., followed by the sound of a car speeding away. Meanwhile, Emily and Sophia behaved like ghosts in their own home. Emily scrolled through her phone with robotic detachment, refusing to meet investigators' eyes. Sophia developed a nervous habit of twisting her sweater sleeves until her wrists turned red. When a detective gently asked if she was afraid of someone, she opened her mouth, then immediately glanced at Richard and went silent. The break in the case came from an unlikely source: Sophia's best friend Megan. She tearfully told police that Sophia had confided in her weeks earlier about something bad happening at home. According to Megan, Sophia had written everything down in a journal hidden under her mattress, a journal that mysteriously vanished after Linda's disappearance. Detectives obtained a warrant and tore the house apart. They found nothing in Sophia's room, but during their search, one officer noticed fresh scratches near the latch of Richard's locked filing cabinet. Inside, tucked between tax documents, was a single folded page from Sophia's diary. The entry was dated 2 days before Linda vanished. In shaky handwriting, Sophia described waking to the sound of her mother sobbing. She'd crept downstairs to find Richard gripping Linda's arm, hissing threats. The last line read, "He told Mom if she tries to take us away, he'll make sure she never sees us again." Forensic analysis of the garage revealed what Richard had tried so hard to hide. Luminol lit up the concrete floor like a constellation. Swipes of blood had been hastily cleaned near the workbench. A deeper scan showed droplet patterns consistent with blunt force trauma. Most damning of all, technicians recovered 3 strands of Linda's hair from a wrench in Richard's toolbox. Its handle wiped clean, but the grooves still holding traces of tissue. As police prepared to make an arrest, Emily made a desperate move. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed her purchasing a shovel, garbage bags, and lime at 3:17 a.m. When confronted, Richard finally cracked. He admitted Linda was dead, but claimed Emily had killed her in a fit of rage after discovering their relationship. According to Richard, he'd only helped bury the body to protect Emily. The truth, as investigators would soon learn, was far more twisted. Because when detectives finally located Linda's shallow grave in the state forest, they made a grisly discovery. The body had been carefully wrapped in Emily's favorite blanket. The shallow grave, hidden deep in Millfield State Forest, told a story no one wanted to believe. When investigators peeled back the layers of disturbed earth, they found Linda Carter's body wrapped in a pale yellow fleece blanket. The same one Emily had carried around since childhood, her so-called security blanket she still slept with at 17. The forensic team worked in grim silence as they documented the scene. Linda's skull showed massive trauma from multiple blows, her fingernails broken from what appeared to be a desperate struggle. But the most chilling detail emerged when they turned her left hand. A silver charm bracelet, a gift from Richard to both daughters, was clasped around Linda's wrist, the same bracelet Emily had been photographed wearing just days before. Police brought Sophia in for questioning again, this time without Richard present. At first, she rocked back and forth in her chair, whispering, "He'll hurt us." But when a female detective slid crime scene photos across the table, images of her mother's body still wrapped in Emily's blanket, Sophia shattered. Through ragged sobs, she confessed that Richard had spent years grooming both sisters, starting with special attention toward Emily when she was just 14. He'd convinced them their mother was jealous of their bond, that Linda wanted to tear their family apart. The night of the murder, Richard had staged an argument, telling the girls Linda was going to send them away. According to Sophia, Emily had been the one to lure Linda into the garage under the pretense of a spilled drink. Then Richard struck. But Sophia's account took an even darker turn. She claimed that after the killing, Richard made them participate in covering it up. Emily, eerily calm, had chosen her own blanket to wrap the body. Sophia described being forced to help carry Linda's remains to Richard's truck, her sister whispering, "It's okay. We're protecting our real family now." Detectives turned their attention to Emily's electronic devices. Deleted search history revealed she'd looked up how long before a body decomposes the morning after Linda disappeared. Even more damning, her phone contained a series of photos. Selfies taken with Richard in bed, time-stamped just hours after they'd buried Linda. In one, Emily wore Linda's favorite necklace, smirking at the camera, while Richard kissed her temple. When confronted with the evidence, Emily didn't deny it. Instead, she coldly informed detectives that Linda never understood what real love was. Richard, however, scrambled to shift blame entirely onto Emily, calling her obsessed and manipulative. But the wrench with his fingerprints, the diary entry, and Sophia's testimony painted an undeniable picture. This was a crime years in the making, orchestrated by a predator who'd turned a daughter against her own mother. As officers led Richard away in handcuffs, Sophia collapsed in the precinct hallway, screaming for her mother between gut-wrenching sobs. Emily, meanwhile, stared blankly ahead, still wearing that damned charm bracelet, the same one now tagged as evidence, its tiny heart charms flecked with blood only visible under UV light. The trial of Richard Hartman became a media circus, with news vans crowding the courthouse steps and true crime bloggers dissecting every development. Prosecutors painted a picture of systematic manipulation, presenting receipts showing Richard had bought Emily expensive lingerie when she was 16, text logs where he called Sophia his little secret, and bank records proving he'd taken out a $250,000 life insurance policy on Linda just 3 months before her death. The defense argued Richard was the victim of a lovesick teenager's fantasy, but their case unraveled when the jailhouse snitch testified. A cellmate came forward with explosive claims. Richard had bragged about training Emily, comparing her to a show dog that just needed proper discipline. He'd allegedly drawn diagrams of the burial site on toilet paper, joking that lime would cancel out the stink of betrayal. The most damning moment came when prosecutors played surveillance footage from the Hartman home security system. Deleted files recovered by forensic experts. The grainy black and white video showed Richard and Emily embracing in the kitchen just hours after Linda's disappearance, her blood still drying on the garage floor as they slow danced to silent music. Sophia's testimony broke the courtroom. She described how Richard would punish them with isolation, locking Linda in the basement for timeouts that lasted days while he convinced the girls their mother was unstable. A child psychologist testified that Sophia exhibited textbook signs of coercive control, including psychosomatic rashes that appeared whenever she spoke about Richard. Emily, meanwhile, sat motionless throughout the trial, her face an emotionless mask even when shown photos of her mother's exhumed body. The jury took only 6 hours to reach a verdict. Richard showed his true colors when the guilty verdict was read, spitting at the prosecutor and screaming that Emily had ruined everything. As bailiffs dragged him away, cameras caught his final act of manipulation, blowing a kiss to Emily across the courtroom. For the first time during the trial, she reacted, a slow, chilling smile spreading across her face. Emily's sentencing hearing proved even more disturbing. Now 18, she refused to speak against Richard, instead delivering a rambling monologue about how Linda forced Richard to love her by neglecting him. The judge sentenced her as an adult to 25 years, noting her complete lack of remorse and disturbing allegiance to her abuser. When officers led her away, Emily turned to the cameras and winked, a gesture that would later become infamous in online true crime forums. In the end, the case left more questions than answers. How much had Emily truly believed? Was she a victim or a willing participant? And most haunting of all, when Richard whispered something to her in that final courtroom moment, what words passed between predator and prey? The only certainty was the echo of the judge's gavel, sealing 2 fates while a third, Sophia's, would forever bear the scars of a family destroyed from within. Years after the trial, the case continues to haunt Millfield like a ghost that refuses to move on. Sophia, now living under a new identity in another state, still sleeps with the lights on. In rare interviews, she describes waking in the night to phantom smells, her stepfather's cologne, her mother's perfume, the sharp tang of bleach from that frantic garage cleanup. She changed her last name twice, unable to escape the notoriety of being that girl from the Hartman case. Therapists diagnosed her with complex PTSD, noting how she still instinctively checks over her shoulder whenever she sees a silver pickup truck, Richard's preferred vehicle. Emily, however, became something far more disturbing, a prison celebrity. From behind bars, she corresponded with dozens of true crime enthusiasts, her neatly handwritten letters filled with twisted justifications. She claimed Linda had been abusive, that Richard saved her, and that the murder was self-defense, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. When a popular crime podcast interviewed her, listeners were shocked by her calm demeanor, as she described the night of the killing in chilling detail, referring to Richard only as "my love." Psychologists analyzing her case suggested she represented one of the most extreme examples of folie à deux ever documented, a shared psychosis between predator and victim. Richard, now serving life in a maximum security facility, reportedly receives fan mail from women convinced he's innocent. Prison sources say he keeps Emily's letters in a shoebox under his bunk, along with a lock of hair witnesses swear matches Linda's auburn shade. His latest parole hearing ended in chaos when he smirked while the coroner described Linda's injuries, resulting in the board denying parole for another 15 years. The house where it all happened still stands on Willow Lane, though it's changed hands 3 times. Each new owner reports the same phenomena: the scent of gardenias, Linda's favorite flower, near the garage, the sound of a woman sobbing in empty rooms. A contractor renovating the basement in 2022 tore down a false wall and discovered a small prison-like space with scratch marks on the door, exactly where Sophia said Richard would lock Linda away. Perhaps the most unsettling postscript emerged when a high school classmate shared an old yearbook page on social media. There, in the margins next to Emily's sophomore portrait, someone had scribbled in faded ink, "One day, I'll make him love me like he loves her." The handwriting matched Emily's. Dated 6 months before the murder, it suggested the tragedy wasn't just Richard's doing, but the horrifying culmination of a broken girl's obsession, a predator's manipulation, and a mother's love that arrived too late to save any of them. Now, whenever true crime forums debate the case, one question always surfaces: who was the real victim here? The answer, like the shadows in that garage, depends entirely on where you choose to shine the light.